At the wedding reception, my husband announced he was signing all his premarital assets over to his mother. The crowd applauded his filial piety. But I took the microphone and said one sentence that left everyone in absolute shock. Have you ever put on the most radiant wedding dress, stood before both of your families, only to realize in sheer horror that the man you dedicated your entire youth to has been hiding a heartbreakingly calculating scheme? Today's story is a painful situation that will leave many reflecting on the thin line between honoring one's parents and sheer selfishness. A young woman was forced to make the most bitter decision of her life right on the stage of her big day upon discovering she was nothing more than a pawn in her in-laws' theatrical act. Stay with us to hear how this story unfolds. The sweet sound of a string quartet echoed through the luxurious ballroom of one of Manhattan's most prestigious hotels. The crystal chandeliers cast a brilliant glow down the aisle lined with white roses where I was holding the arm of the man I had spent my entire 20s loving. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. My flowing gown, the beaming smiles of our parents, the sweet congratulations from relatives and friends. It all made me feel like I was walking in a beautiful dream. I looked up at Hunter, my groom-to-be, my heart overflowing with fierce faith in our happy future together. The MC with his charismatic voice stepped onto the stage joyfully announcing that it was time for the groom to say a few words before the two families officially raised their glasses. According to the script we had agreed upon, Hunter was supposed to thank our parents and say a few romantic vows to me. But the moment the MC finished speaking, Hunter hastily and almost roughly snatched the microphone. His strange impatience made me flinch. Hunter cleared his throat, scanning the silent, expectant ballroom. He didn't look at me for a single second. Instead, his eyes locked onto the main table where his biological mother, Eleanor, was sitting with an incredibly smug look on her face. With a loud, clear and booming voice that pounded against my eardrums, Hunter spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, today is the most important day of my life. To be standing here today, I owe an immense debt of gratitude to my mother who raised me single-handedly. Therefore, with all of you as my witnesses, I would like to announce a major decision. I will be transferring the deed of my premarital property, the luxury condo in Brooklyn, along with all the savings and stocks currently in my name, entirely to my mother, Eleanor. Furthermore, to fulfill my duty as a son, starting this month, I will automatically deduct $3,500 from my monthly salary to support her. Mom, you can enjoy your retirement with peace of mind. I've got everything taken care of." The moment his declaration ended, a roaring round of applause erupted from the floor. But that applause came entirely from the groom's side of the room. Hunter's aunts and uncles nodded in approval, endlessly praising him for being an incredibly devoted son who remembered his roots. Eleanor sat there, chest puffed out in pride, a wide smile spreading across her heavily made-up face. In stark contrast to the groom's family's jubilation, all the guests on the bride's side, along with my friends, sat in stunned silence. My parents, sitting at the family table, turned pale with shock. The space around me felt like it was collapsing. The ambient noise shattered. My ears were ringing. I stood rooted to the stage, my hands turning ice cold, my heart feeling as though it were being crushed. That luxury condo he just mentioned wasn't solely his property. The condo cost $100. Hunter only had $200,000. The rest had to be financed through a mortgage. To reduce the crushing interest rates, he had sweet-talked me into contributing my entire life savings of $100,000 for the down payment. He promised that after we got married, we would pay the mortgage together and he would add my name to the deed. Because I trusted the man I loved, because I thought that as husband and wife, we shouldn't keep score. I had obediently wire transferred every penny of my hard-earned money to him. And now, in front of hundreds of people, he was blatantly stripping away my hard work, turning all of those assets into his own solely to hand them over to his mother. He was going to give Eleanor $3,500 a month, while his salary was a mere $6,000. The remaining $2,500 wouldn't even cover the monthly mortgage and HOA fees for the condo, let alone living expenses, utilities, or raising children in the future. He was dumping the entire financial burden onto my shoulders. He wanted me to work my fingers to the bone to pay the mortgage on a house in his mother's name, carrying the weight of our new family on my modest corporate salary. A wave of suffocating resentment rose in my throat. I suddenly saw the true face behind the mask of the devoted son. It was ultimate selfishness, cowardly calculation, and a cruel lack of respect for the woman about to become his wife. They didn't see me as a life partner. They saw me as a free ATM, a mule for them to exploit. Down below, Eleanor was still smiling, a mocking smile that challenged my endurance. My patience and forgiveness entirely evaporated. An invisible surge of strength pulled me together. I took a deep breath, my eyes bone dry without a single tear. I took a step forward and coldly snatched the microphone back from Hunter's hand. He jumped, his eyes bugging out at me. Before he could react, my sharp, steely voice echoed crystal clear across the ballroom. "Dear families and guests, thank you for being here tonight. Hunter has finished his part. Now it's my turn. Regarding his decision to provide for his mother, I fully support it because a child should honor their parents. But Hunter conveniently forgot to mention one very crucial detail. That Brooklyn condo he just announced he's gifting to Eleanor. It contains $100,000 of my own hard-earned money. Because we weren't legally married yet, he used my trust to put only his name on the deed, and now he is unilaterally giving away our joint assets." The ballroom erupted in gasps. Whispers and murmurs swept through the crowd. Hunter's face drained of color. He stammered, trying to grab the microphone back, but I stepped away, firmly continuing. "A marriage that begins with calculation, deceit, and a complete lack of respect has no reason to continue. Right here, with everyone as my witness, I am officially calling off this wedding. From this second forward, Hunter and I have no relationship whatsoever. And Hunter, I demand that you immediately refund the $100,000 I transferred to you for the house. I still have all the bank statements. I wish you and your family a very happy life with your newly acquired wealth." With that, I slammed the microphone down onto the table. A piercing screech of feedback signaled the end of this ridiculous farce. I calmly turned around, gathered the hem of my heavy wedding dress, and walked straight off the stage, leaving the groom's family in state of absolute shock. Taking firm, steady steps down the rosin aisle, I didn't look back once. Under the bright lights of the venue, I could feel the curious, pitying, and astonished gazes burning into me. My parents had already stood up. My mother's eyes were red and welling with tears. My father, a man who was stern and composed his entire life, stepped forward and tightly grabbed my freezing hand. He spoke just loud enough for me to hear, but with absolute clarity. "Let's go home, sweetheart. This family doesn't deserve my daughter." Lily, my best friend since college, rushed over from the friend's table. She helped me carry the heavy train of my dress. Her face contorted with fury as she glared at the groom's side. We walked out the glass doors of the hotel, leaving behind the chaotic atmosphere. Eleanor's screeching curses and Hunter's frantic panic. The crisp autumn air of New York hit my face, making me strangely alert. Not a single tear fell. The heartbreak had been entirely replaced by a fierce instinct for self-preservation. As soon as I got into the Uber, Lily had hastily hailed. Pulled out my phone. Every phone number and social media account belonging to Hunter and his relatives were permanently blocked. I wanted to cut off every toxic route right then and there. That night, back at my apartment, I peeled off the lavish wedding dress and scrubbed away the heavy makeup. Looking at myself in the mirror, I saw a woman who had just survived a massive hurricane, but was still standing tall. My parents sat in the living room. Neither uttered a word of blame or complaint. My mom just warmed up some soup for me and told me to eat and go to sleep. The warm, quiet support of my family was the greatest anchor I had to help clean up the wreckage Hunter had caused. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the window, signaling a new beginning. I woke up early, brewed a pot of coffee, ate a proper breakfast, and booted up my laptop. I gathered every screenshot of my text conversations with Hunter discussing buying the condo. I found the bank wire confirmation for the $100,000 with the clear memo. Maya's contribution for Brooklyn condo down payment. I saved everything meticulously into a secure folder. At exactly 8 a.m. I called Lily. We drove straight to the law office of Thomas & Associates in Midtown Manhattan. Attorney Thomas was an old family friend of Lily's, known for being a ruthless civil litigator who didn't waste time. Flipping through the printed dossier I handed him, he skimmed the evidence and nodded in approval at my thoroughness. You did the right thing, Maya. With this evidence, you have solid legal grounds to reclaim those funds. His actions border on unjust enrichment and civil fraud. If he refuses to pay, we will have these text messages authenticated to ensure their legal admissibility. For now, I will draft a formal demand letter requiring the immediate return of the assets. It will be sent via certified mail to his home address and directly to the HR department at his corporate office. Attorney Thomas broke it down thoroughly. I nodded, signing the retainer and power of attorney. I knew that greedy, ego-driven people like Hunter only feel fear when the law and their employment are threatened. That afternoon I put on a sharp, elegant pantsuit, applied light makeup, and went to my PR firm to work as usual. Personal matters cannot interfere with my career. That's my rule. However, the storm wasn't over. Around 3:00 p.m. the receptionist rushed into my department looking panicked, saying a man claiming to be my fiancé was making a scene in the lobby demanding to see me. I took a deep breath, maintaining a calm demeanor, and walked out. Hunter was standing there, his face haggard, his eyes bloodshot. Seeing me, he lunged forward to grab my arm. But I stepped back, keeping a safe distance. Are you crazy, Maya? How dare you humiliate me and my mother in front of our entire family like that? Do you know my mom's blood pressure spiked and she's been on medication since last night because of you? Call your lawyer and drop that lawsuit right now. Hunter shouted, panting heavily. I looked at the man in front of me, my heart entirely devoid of emotion. I crossed my arms and replied in a flat, unwavering tone. First of all, we have no relationship anymore, so do not use that tone to give me orders. Second, the person who humiliated you was your own greed and cowardly calculation, not me. Third, that $100,000 is mine. Return it and my lawyer will stand down. If not, I'll see you in court. Hunter was rendered speechless. The naked truth left him with no excuses, but his weak, spineless nature kicked in. He lowered his voice, trying to salvage the situation with pathetic gaslighting. I only did it to make my mom happy. I kept a record of the money you put in. As a wife, you're supposed to think about your husband's family. Are you really throwing away years of our relationship over some money? I let out a harsh laugh, giving him a look of pure pity. Don't use the word relationship as a shield for your selfishness. I wanted to get married to build a life together, not to be a free ATM for you and your mother to drain. Now leave this building immediately or I'm calling building security. Seeing my resolve, Hunter flared up again, waving his arms and yelling curses. Without wasting another breath, I signaled the head security guard standing nearby. Instantly, 3 large guards stepped forward and physically escorted Hunter out the glass doors, ignoring his frantic resistance. I turned on my heel, walked back into my office, and firmly shut the door, locking all the nuisance out. Hunter's failure to intimidate me at work apparently infuriated Eleanor. A woman who always viewed herself as the supreme matriarch used to manipulating everything in her family could not accept the fact that a girl from a normal background like me dared to publicly rebel and ruin her perfect master plan. Just 2 days after the wedding incident at dusk, I had just gotten home from work and was having dinner with my parents at our house in Long Island. The doorbell rang incessantly. My dad went to open it. The moment he opened the door, Eleanor, her face radiating murderous intent, pushed past him and barged straight into our living room. Following her were 2 middle-aged women I recognized as Hunter's aunts. Eleanor stood in the middle of our house, hands on her hips, shouting so loudly that the neighbors started peeking out their windows. Oh good. You're both home. You need to look at how you raised your daughter. I thought this was a decent family, but turns out she's a gold digger who planned to steal my son's property before she even crossed our threshold. My mother shot up from her chair, her face pale, but still maintaining basic politeness. "Mrs. Carter, watch your mouth. My daughter didn't take a single dime from your family. It's your son who is holding on to Maya's money." Eleanor sneered, reaching into her knockoff designer handbag. She pulled out a prepaid debit card and threw it hard onto our glass coffee table. It skidded with a clatter and fell onto the rug. "Here is your daughter's precious $100,000. Take it and buy her some brain supplements. Did you really think my family would covet a few pennies from yours? I'm throwing it back so you can open your eyes. Don't think your little lawyer games scare us. A poor, disrespectful girl like her. My son dodging her is a blessing for our family." I slowly stood up, walked around the dining table, and bent down to pick up the card. Holding it, I walked right up to Eleanor, looking her dead in the eye. "I appreciate you bringing the money, but ma'am, I wired the funds directly to Hunter's verified bank account with a clear paper trail. I am not accepting a random, untraceable debit card that may or may not have funds on it without a legally binding receipt. Please take this back. My lawyer has sent the formal demand. All financial transactions must be handled transparently through the banks with legal documentation. If the deadline passes and the funds aren't in my account, the courts will deal with your son." With that, I shoved the card back into Eleanor's hand. My decisive refusal and complete lack of fear drove Eleanor insane. She raised her hand, about to point and scream again when my father spoke up, his voice booming with authority. "Mrs. Carter, have some self-respect and get out of my house immediately. If you continue to make a scene, I am calling the police and pressing charges for trespassing and harassment." My father's unyielding stance forced the two aunts to nervously grab Eleanor's arms and pull her back. She ground her teeth, spinning around and storming out the door, but not before dropping a venomous curse. "Just wait. I'm going to plaster your ugly face all over the internet. Let's see what man will ever dare to marry you after this." She wasn't making an empty threat. The very next morning, social media exploded. Lily blew up my phone at 6 a.m., sending me a barrage of links. Eleanor had used her Facebook account and rallied all her relatives to share a 1,000-word manifesto across massive local community groups and Reddit pages in the tri-state area. In her post, she played the role of a sweet, hard-working single mother who sacrificed everything for her successful son. She fabricated a tear-jerking narrative that I was a professional gold digger. She accused me of faking innocence to drain Hunter's finances, demanding he put his $1 million condo in my name before the wedding. When Hunter supposedly discovered my plot and put the house in his mother's name to protect the family, I allegedly threw a tantrum at the wedding, cancelled it, and tried to extort $100,000 from them as a breakup fee. She even attached old photos of me dining at nice restaurants, implying I was blowing through her son's hard-earned money. Her blatant distortion of the truth, combined with her stellar performance as the victim, quickly ignited the internet's fury. Thousands of malicious comments were aimed at me. Strangers on the internet verbally abused me, calling me a materialistic leech and a toxic gold digger. Some internet sleuths even found where I worked and started leaving negative reviews on my company's Google page, reading words dripping with such malice. My heart ached. My parents saw it too and were devastated. My mom sighed, looking at me with immense pity. The power of the internet mob is truly terrifying. It can turn black into white, turning a victim into a villain through the baseless words of a malicious person. But my pain quickly morphed into the fire of righteous anger. I knew if I stayed silent and collapsed now, Eleanor and Hunter would succeed in trampling my life. I had to fight back to protect my own honor and my family's. Amidst the storm of criticism, I took a personal day from work. I locked myself in my home office with the coldest head possible. The truth is always the sharpest weapon, and I was holding undeniable proof. First, I logged into my bank portal and downloaded the official statements from the 2 years I dated Hunter. I highlighted the money I spent on our vacations, the expensive gifts I bought for Eleanor during the holidays, and most importantly, the wire transfer confirmation for $100,000 clearly labeled Maya's contribution for Brooklyn condo down payment. Second, I contacted Lily. During the wedding reception, Lily had used her high-end mirrorless camera to record the entire stage toast. The crisp 4K video showing Hunter clearly stating he was taking our assets to repay his mother, Eleanor's smug face, and my very rational mic drop demanding my money back, was sent to me in maximum quality. That evening, right at prime time when social media traffic peaks, I created a public post on my own Facebook and cross-osted it into the exact same community groups Eleanor had used to spread her rumors. My post wasn't dramatic, whiny, or emotional. It was brief, ironclad, and transparent like a legal indictment. To those following the cancelled wedding drama at Hotel X this past weekend, I am Maya, the woman being defamed in Mrs. Carter's posts. I do not enjoy internet drama, but to protect my honor and my family, I am releasing the absolute truth with 3 pieces of evidence. Below the text, I attached 1, the certified bank wire confirmation proving I was the one who provided the $100,000 down payment, completely debunking the lie that I was extorting them. 2, screenshots of Hunter's text messages persuading me to wire the money, followed by proof that he secretly put the deed in his name only. 3, the unedited high-quality video of the actual wedding reception showing Hunter's outrageous speech, Eleanor's gloating, and my rightful demand for my funds. It took less than 30 minutes for my post to trigger a massive earthquake on social media. The naked, cruel truth was laid bare. The court of public opinion pulled a whiplash-inducing U-turn. The same people who had cursed me yesterday were now seething with absolute rage at Hunter's deceitful mama's boy behavior. The pitchforks were pointed directly at Hunter and Eleanor. Oh my God, what kind of man steals his fiancée's life savings to give to his mommy? The mother-in-law deserves an Oscar for that victim post. Straight-up robbery. Thank God the bride woke up and cancelled the wedding, or she'd be paying a mortgage for her mother-in-law for 30 years. Make $6,000 gives mommy $3, $5K makes the wife pay the mortgage. Absolute clown behavior. Thousands of sarcastic, furious comments flooded Hunter and Eleanor's pages, terrifying them into deactivating their accounts entirely. But it didn't stop at the internet. The legal demand letter stamped by attorney Thomas's firm had been delivered straight to the director of HR at Hunter's Wall Street firm. A company of that caliber cares deeply about its employees' ethical reputation. A scandal involving financial fraud against a fiancé and severely immoral conduct was a massive liability. That afternoon, Hunter was placed on indefinite unpaid suspension pending an internal review of his personal conduct. Pushed into a corner, socially ruined, facing unemployment, and staring down a civil lawsuit, the arrogance of Eleanor and her son completely disintegrated. That night, my phone buzzed with a bank notification. $100,000 had been wired back into my account in full with a term memo. Hunter refund. About an hour later, a public post appeared on Hunter's reactivated Facebook page. He admitted to making impulsive and misguided decisions, apologized for the pain he caused me, and confirmed he had refunded the money. Eleanor also posted a brief, stiff apology, claiming she misunderstood the kids' intentions and asked for the internet's forgiveness. Even though their apologies were forced and incredibly fake, it was enough for me. My goal of getting my money back and clearing my name was accomplished. I blocked them for the absolute last time, closing this dark chapter. However, the drama at my current company had left me exhausted. I decided to hand in my resignation. I needed a fresh environment, a new space to completely detox my mind and start over. 2 months passed since the cancelled wedding. My life gradually stabilized. With my expertise and years of experience, I easily landed a senior PR manager position at a massive global tech firm headquartered in Manhattan. The dynamic new environment and friendly colleagues kept me busy and helped fade the unhappy memories. But it truly is a small world. Even though I tried to plug my ears and close my eyes, rumors about my ex's family still trickled down to me through mutual acquaintances. During a weekend coffee run, Lily excitedly spilled some hot gossip. Hunter was getting married, a rushed shotgun wedding. The bride's name was Violet, a young woman originally from Ohio. Rumor had it she was from a wealthy family, hand-picked and aggressively match-made by Eleanor herself. Hearing this, I just smiled, feeling nothing but relief as I stirred my iced latte. Good for them. Hope he treats her better, I said. I honestly didn't care anymore. Not my circus, not my monkeys. But the tree wants peace. Yet the wind will not stop. One Friday afternoon, as I was getting off work, an unknown number called my phone repeatedly. I finally answered. The voice on the other end was a young woman sounding incredibly timid and stressed. Excuse me. Is this Maya? I'm Violet. I'm the girl marrying Hunter. Could you please spare a little time to meet me? Just 15 minutes. I have something really important I need to tell you. I frowned. A strange premonition rising in my gut. Why on earth would my ex's new fiancé want to see me? I was about to decline, but the desperation in Violet's voice softened my resolve. I agreed to meet her at a quiet hidden coffee shop in Greenwich Village. Violet arrived looking pale and exhausted, wearing an oversized sweater. As soon as she sat down, she awkwardly rubbed her stomach, looking at me with deep guilt. Without beating around the bush, Violet placed her iPhone on the table and pressed play on an audio file. Maya, I tracked you down because my conscience is eating me alive and because I've finally seen the true face of this family. Please just listen to this. A staticky recording began, followed by the unmistakable, chillingly calculating voice of Eleanor, accompanied by Hunter's murmurs of agreement. Eleanor, you listen to me. Maya is too smart and she makes her own money. If you marry her, we will never be able to control her. Just do what I say. At the wedding, just hype it up and announce you're giving the assets and the money to me. Knowing her massive ego, she will blow up and cancel the wedding herself. Then the blame is on her for walking out, not us. Once we get rid of her, I'm bringing Violet in for you. Her family has old money. She's docile and easy to control. Just tell her to fake a pregnancy to lock her in. Once the deal is sealed, her parents out in Ohio will definitely drop serious cash to buy you guys a house and a car. Hunter, but Mom, what if Maya demands the down payment money back? Eleanor, money that goes into my pocket never comes out. I dare her to try. Just do exactly as I say. The recording clicked off. My spine went ice cold. I sat in dead silence, my hands gripping each other so tightly my knuckles turned white. So, the humiliation I suffered that day wasn't a moment of impulsive stupidity from Hunter. It was a vile theatrical act, a cruel script meticulously directed by Eleanor just to force me to walk away, making room for a more lucrative business deal she had been eyeing all along. They treated my 7 years of love like absolute garbage to pave the way for their despicable greed. Violet teared up, grabbing my hand. Maya, I am so sorry. This pregnancy is completely fake. Eleanor forced me to wear a pregnancy belly and fake ultrasound papers to trick my family into agreeing to a rushed wedding. I was so blindly in love with Hunter that I just went along with it. But living near that woman these past few months, I realized her toxic control is suffocating. She manages every single penny Hunter makes. She demanded I give her my paycheck to hold on to for me. And she was actually planning to force my parents to buy Hunter a Tesla as a wedding gift. And Hunter just obeys her every command. He is such a coward. I'm so scared, Maya. If I marry into that family, my life is over. I sighed, pulling a napkin from the dispenser and handing it to Violet. The anger inside me slowly subsided, replaced by profound pity for the naive young girl sitting across from me. So, what are you going to do? Asked gently. Violet wiped her tears, her eyes flashing with a sudden, strange, fierce resolve. I've made my decision. This morning, I boxed up all the engagement gifts and the ring and shipped them back to Eleanor's house. I called my parents in Ohio and confessed the whole truth. I'm heading to Port Authority right now to catch a bus out of the city. I refuse to sell my life to a family like that. I only wanted to meet you to say I'm sorry and to tell you that you are incredibly lucky you escaped them. Smiled. The most peaceful smile I've had in months. I don't blame you, Violet. I actually have to thank you for letting me know the truth. Have a safe trip home. Start over and find someone who actually deserves you. I watched Violet's silhouette disappear out the door of the cafe. I stepped out onto the street, blending into the bustling Manhattan rush hour crowd. Eleanor's grand play had reached its finale. Those who sow the wind will reap the whirlwind. And frankly, the storm coming for Eleanor was just getting started. Monday morning at the tech firm in Manhattan kicked off with the usual chaotic rush. I took a sip of black coffee, focused on reviewing the deck for a major product launch event at the end of the month. Since the day I found out about Violet's fake pregnancy, my heart felt incredibly light. I genuinely thought the worst was fully behind me. But Eleanor wasn't someone who could easily accept defeat. Losing a wealthy daughter-in-law like Violet on top of having to cough up $100,000 to me had driven her completely insane. Around 10 a.m., while the office was deep in focused silence, the sound of police sirens and chaotic screaming echoed up from the lobby level on the street below. I frowned, walking over to the floor-to-ceiling windows to look down. The sight below made me freeze. Right outside the revolving doors of my corporate building, a crowd of about 10 people was protesting. Standing right in the middle was none other than Eleanor. She was wearing a bright red tracksuit holding a white megaphone. Flanking her were two middle-aged women, Aunt Mary and Aunt Susan from Hunter's side. They were holding up a massive red vinyl banner with giant yellow letters that read, "Mia is a fraud. Give my family back our justice. Home wrecker." And it wasn't just Eleanor's family. They had brought along 3 or 4 young guys holding smartphones on gimbals, live streaming the whole thing to social media. Eleanor screamed into the megaphone, her voice bouncing off the skyscrapers. "Everyone look at the face of a scammer. Her name is Maya. She works on the 8th floor of this building. She faked being in love with my son for 7 years, scammed us out of our money, and then slandered my family. She bullied my new daughter-in-law into running away. Record this so the whole country sees her true face." Whispers broke out among my colleagues on the floor. People were looking at me with a mix of pity and intense curiosity. The HR director grimaced, pulling me into his office and demanding I handle this personal issue immediately so it wouldn't impact the company's image. I took a deep breath and nodded firmly at my boss. I knew perfectly well that hiding right now would only give those psychos a victory. I had to face this and destroy this pathetic circus once and for all. I walked back to my desk, grabbed my phone, and borrowed a massive high-powered Bluetooth speaker from the AV department. I stepped into the elevator and hit the button for the lobby, radiating absolute composure. As soon as I stepped through the automatic glass doors, Eleanor's screaming grew deafening. Seeing me, she acted like she had struck gold, pointing right at my face and yelling. The live streamers immediately shoved their cameras in my direction. The ants lunged forward to grab my jacket, but 2 massive building security guards stepped in, forming a human barricade to protect me. I stood up straight, my eyes sweeping coldly over the enraged faces. I turned on the Bluetooth speaker, syncing it to my phone, my voice projected loudly and sharply, completely overpowering Eleanor's cheap megaphone. "Mrs. Carter, I thought you already learned your lesson about defamation on social media. Now you come to my workplace to harass me. Do you think the law doesn't apply to you?" Eleanor put her hands on her hips, lifting her chin in defiance. "Don't you threaten me with the law. You ruined my son's happiness. You manipulated Violet into leaving and giving back the ring. Give me back my daughter-in-law." I let out a loud, harsh laugh, a laugh of pure disbelief at her audacity. I didn't waste another breath arguing. I pressed play on the audio file Violet had given me. I cranked the volume on the massive Bose speaker to the absolute maximum, blasting the sound into the ears of every single person on that sidewalk. Eleanor's cold, calculating voice echoed off the concrete. From her explicit instructions for Hunter to steal my assets on stage to the sinister plan to force Violet to fake a pregnancy to extort a Tesla out of her parents, every single word rang out with crystal clarity. The crowd of curious New York onlookers suddenly went dead silent. The live streamers froze, their hands shaking as their chat feeds exploded at the massive plot twist. Eleanor's face went from beet red to a ghostly white. She panicked, frantically, trying to lunge at the speaker to turn it off, but the security guards pushed her back. The 2 ants stood there, jaws on the floor, stumbling backward in horror. "This is the proof of the love you had for your new daughter-in-law," I growled, glaring at Eleanor with absolute disgust. You treat human beings like commodities to extort. You forced her to fake a pregnancy. Your own greed and evil drove her away. Not me. Right at the climax of the tension, a yellow cab screeched to a halt at the curb. The door opened and a young woman stepped out. It was Violet. She was wearing a simple hoodie and carrying a backpack. She hadn't boarded her bus back to Ohio yet because she wanted to come back and set the record straight. Never expecting to walk into this exact scene, Violet marched right up and stood next to me. She lifted her chin, looking straight at Eleanor, her voice shaking but resolute. "Mrs. Carter, stop slandering Maya. I am the one who recorded your conversation and gave it to her. I would rather be the girl who ran away from her fiancé. I would rather go back to Ohio and work on a farm than ever step foot into a home filled with your lies and deceit. The pregnancy was fake. You forced me to forge medical records to scam my parents. Everyone here heard it clearly. This family consists of nothing but con artists." Violet's appearance was the fatal blow that utterly destroyed the last shred of Eleanor's dignity. The crowd on the street began booing and shouting insults right back at Eleanor and her group. The live streamers were now narrating the utter humiliation of the evil mother-in-law. But it didn't end there. The wail of NYPD sirens flashed right next to the curb. Building management had called the precinct the second Eleanor started unrolling her banner. 4 uniformed NYPD officers stepped out of their cruisers, immediately demanding the crowd disperse and confiscating the banner. An officer pointed at Eleanor and her crew. His voice stern. You, hands where I can see them. We are taking you down to the precinct. Protesting on private property, inciting a disturbance, harassment, and using amplified sound without a permit are all criminal offenses in New York. Eleanor finally went into full panic mode. She grabbed the officer's sleeve, crying and begging. "Officer, please. I'm just an old mother worried about her son." I was confused. "Me go." But her begging fell on deaf ears. The NYPD does not play games with people disturbing the peace and harassing corporate buildings. Eleanor, her aunts, and even the live streamers were loaded into police vans and taken to the station. Violet and I also went to the precinct to give official statements. At the precinct, armed with a clear audio recording and Violet's witness testimony, Eleanor was formally charged with harassment, disturbing the peace, and cited for criminal defamation. Holding a copy of the police report, I let out a massive sigh of relief. Justice had finally spoken. Karma had finally caught up. While the incident at the office was resolved legally, the aftermath left me drained. Office gossip, the side eyes from colleagues. Even though they knew I was the victim, it all created an invisible, heavy pressure on my shoulders. Things weren't much better for my parents back home. Neighbors would constantly whisper about how I canceled my wedding and had people show up at my job to protest. To give my parents some peace, I decided to move out. I signed a lease for a quiet, secure apartment on the 3rd floor of a walk-up in Etoria, Queens, close to the subway line for my new job. I thought that after Eleanor was arrested, fined, and slapped with a restraining order, her family would finally learn their lesson and back off. But shamelessness was practically in their DNA. Eleanor had been bailed out quickly by producing medical records claiming she had chronic high blood pressure. And on the very first night I moved into my new apartment, they found me. It was 11 p.m. A freezing, sleepy New York rain was coming down hard. I was curled up in a blanket reading a book when violent pounding erupted on my door, followed by Hunter's panicked screaming. "Maya, open the door. Maya, my mom just collapsed. Open the door." I jumped out of my skin, throwing off the blanket. I crept over to the door and looked through the peephole. Under the dim, flickering hallway light, Hunter was banging on my door. Down by his feet, Eleanor was lying flat on the floor, eyes squeezed shut, her clothes disheveled. My heart pounded in my chest, but the initial panic was quickly extinguished by cold logic. How did they get my new address? He must have stalked me from my office. Eleanor fainting right outside my door at midnight was obviously another cheap extortionist theatrical act. If I opened that door, they would force their way inside, make a massive scene to alert the neighbors, and try to hold me liable for her failing health, either demanding money or forcing me to drop the restraining orders. I took a step back, telling myself to stay calm. I didn't say a word. I didn't turn on any lights. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and dialed 911. I calmly told the dispatcher my address, stating that 2 individuals with a restraining order were harassing me, and that one of them appeared to be having a medical emergency in the hallway, requiring an ambulance. Within 15 minutes, the blare of an FDNY ambulance and NYPD cruisers tore through the quiet neighborhood. Red and blue lights flashed through my window blinds. Hunter, out in the hallway, panicked when he heard the sirens. The banging instantly stopped. I looked through the peephole again. Hunter was shaking Eleanor's shoulder. "Mom, get up. The cops and medics are here." Eleanor, who had been playing dead, sprung up like a coiled spring. She hastily dusted off her clothes, her face pale, and tried to drag Hunter toward the stairwell to run away. But they were too late. 2 NYPD officers and a team of EMTs carrying a stretcher were already coming up the stairs. I finally unlocked and opened my door, my face completely deadpan. An EMT approached Eleanor, instructing her to sit on the stretcher to check her vitals. Eleanor waved her hands frantically, stuttering. "I'm fine. I just got a little dizzy. I'm perfectly healthy now. I don't need a hospital." The EMT checked her blood pressure and heart rate anyway, then looked at the police officers. "Patient is perfectly fine. Vitals are completely stable. No signs of syncope or cardiac distress." One of the NYPD officers narrowed his eyes, glaring at Hunter and his mother. "So, you two are hanging out in a residential hallway at midnight, banging on this young woman's door and faking a heart attack. Do you understand this is a violation of a protective order and criminal harassment? D's now." Hunter shakingly pulled out his driver's license, keeping his head down, terrified to look at anyone. Ella Laner was crying, giving a convoluted excuse about looking for a lost friend. The police officers wrote them citations on the spot, warning them that if they stepped within a 500-foot radius of this building again, they would be arrested for felony stalking. Watching Hunter and his mother do the walk of shame down the stairs under police escort, my heart felt totally empty. There was no joy, only a profound, suffocating exhaustion. This toxic cycle felt endless. If I stayed in this city at this job, they would always find a way to pop up and throw tantrums. Sitting alone in my quiet apartment, I made a monumental decision. I needed to truly escape to restart my life. I refused to let my youth be buried under the filthy, calculating schemes of that family. The very next morning, I handed in my resignation at the tech firm. Despite being at the top of my game, I packed my bags and broke my lease. I went to Verizon, permanently killed the phone number I had used for 10 years, and bought a brand new one. I scrubbed my entire digital footprint, deleting all old social media accounts and creating a private one just for my family and Lily. This time I severed every single tie, completely erasing the Maya of the past to begin a completely anonymous journey away from the people in my history. Time flew by. The freezing New York winter faded, making way for the warm, bright sunshine of spring. Over 6 months had passed since the night I cut all contact, and my life had truly turned a new page. I had transitioned into a project development role at a massive tech conglomerate headquartered in Manhattan. The new job with a lucrative salary and demanding focus left me no time to dwell on old miseries. On a Friday afternoon, my company hosted a massive corporate software summit at the Waldorf Historie. I was in charge of greeting VIP clients. Dressed in a sleek charcoal gray pantsuit, I stood at the entrance of the ballroom, flashing a professional smile as I welcomed executives from partner firms just as the keynote was about to begin. A man in a navy blue tailored suit, looking incredibly distinguished with a leather briefcase in hand, walked up. "Excuse me, I have an invitation for Preston." I looked down at the name on the card, then looked up at the face of the man standing in front of me. My heart skipped a beat. "Preston," I blurted out. The man paused, his eyes locking onto mine. Pure shock washed over his handsome, sharp features. "Maya. Oh my God. Maya, is that you? You work here." Preston was a senior from my university days. He used to be the captain of the debate team. A radiant, warm guy who was always ready to help anyone. Preston was also my shy, innocent college crush. Back then we had a sweet, unspoken connection. But because Preston graduated early and got a scholarship to study in London, the romance was shelved, becoming a beautiful memory locked away. I had heard through the grapevine years later that he had returned to the States, became highly successful, and gotten married. Meeting an old flame in the middle of a crowded ballroom brought up indescribable emotions. Preston was now a senior project director for a massive engineering firm. The maturity and confidence in his every move commanded respect. We only had time for a quick exchange of pleasantries before he had to enter the hall. That night, when I got back to my apartment, a text from an unknown number popped up on my new work phone. "Hey Maya, it's Preston. I got your number from your VP of sales. Are you free this weekend? I'd love to grab a coffee and catch up." Reading the text, I hesitated for a long time. After the horrific trauma of my almost marriage to Hunter, my heart was frozen solid, surrounded by an impenetrable fortress. I was terrified of men, terrified of sweet words, terrified that any romantic relationship would drag me back into the mud. But Preston's genuine politeness made it impossible to say no. I agreed to meet. On Sunday morning we met at a quiet cafe near Central Park. Preston arrived early and had already ordered me a chamomile tea, my favorite drink from back in the day. That tiny observant detail moved me. We talked about our careers and our lives over the years we'd been apart. Preston listened to my stories with profound respect. He wasn't nosy and he didn't judge. When the conversation quieted down, Preston looked at me with deep, slightly sad eyes as he talked about his own life. "I've been divorced for 2 years, Maya." His voice was steady but carried a lot of weight. "My ex-wife is a good person, but we just didn't share the same core values or goals. We split amicably. No kids involved. For the past 2 years, I threw myself entirely into my work to ignore the emptiness. I honestly never thought I'd run into you here." Looking at Preston in that moment, I felt the deep resonance of 2 souls carrying scars. We talked until well past noon. When we walked out to say goodbye, Preston opened the passenger door of his car for me, smiling softly. "Maya, no matter how much the world changes in my eyes, you are still the resilient, radiant girl from college. Don't let the terrible things in your past steal your smile. From now on, let me be a friend, someone you can share your highs and lows with. Is that okay?" His gentle but incredibly grounded words felt like a ray of warm sunshine piercing the ice in my heart. Even though I was still guarded, I knew this fateful reunion had planted a seed of hope in my barren soul. In the months that followed, Preston patiently walked into my life with the most genuine, ordinary acts of care. He didn't use flashy, expensive gifts to buy my affection. He used actions to prove his solid, reliable presence. I remember a Tuesday evening in July when a torrential summer downpour unexpectedly hit the city. The subway entrance where I was standing was flooded. I was struggling to get an Uber, but no driver was accepting the ride. Just as I was shivering from the cold wind, a familiar SUV pulled up right in front of me. Preston, wearing a dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, stepped out with a massive black golf umbrella, rushing over to cover me. He didn't complain or say a word. He just took his dry suit jacket from the back seat, draped it over my shivering shoulders, and carefully adjusted the seat heater so I'd be comfortable. The warmth from his jacket spread, chasing away the biting cold of the rain outside. There were also Sunday mornings when, knowing I skipped breakfast because I loved to sleep in, Preston would go to the local deli, buy fresh hot bagels and coffee, and bring them right to my apartment door. He would sit and watch me eat, his eyes overflowing with absolute adoration. Preston's sincerity and emotional intelligence completely dismantled the final defensive walls around my heart. When our feelings had grown deep enough, Preston officially asked me to be his girlfriend. That night, under the glittering lights of a rooftop restaurant in Manhattan, Preston held my hand, his voice deep and warm. "Maya, I've had a broken marriage. You've got deep scars of your own. We aren't young enough to play games with our hearts anymore. I want to take care of you for the rest of my life. Be my girlfriend." Even though my heart was pounding, I pulled my hand back slightly. The nightmares of Eleanor, the financial control, the suffocating dictates of a husband's family, they still haunted me. I looked at Preston and bluntly laid out my deepest fears. "Preston, I am terrified. I'm scared of families interfering. I'm scared that financial calculations will kill love. If one day your family tries to control our lives or forces me to submit to unreasonable demands, I wouldn't survive it." Preston smiled with total understanding. He squeezed my hand tighter, his eyes fierce with conviction. "I understand your fear, but trust me, I am an entirely independent man. What I earn is mine, and in the future, it will be our transparent joint property. My parents live quietly in upstate New York. They are incredibly reasonable people who have never once interfered in my life. And as for me, I swear I will always respect you and protect you from anyone trying to hurt you. We will live an independent, equal, and free life." Preston's rock-solid promise made tears stream down my face. They were tears of liberation, of pure happiness. I nodded, leaning my head onto his shoulder. To prove his words, Preston asked his company's board of directors to transition him from a role that required constant travel to a stationary project management position in New York, just so he could spend more time with me. He gave me full access to his finances and bank accounts, and we built a financial plan for our future together. That absolute transparency gave me a sense of security I had never known before. 3 months later, Preston took me upstate to meet his parents. His parents were retired. Teachers kind, humble, and warm. They welcomed me with open arms. We had a simple, cozy dinner. There was no interrogation, no judging my background. They genuinely respected their son's choice and loved me for who I was. After that trip, I confidently brought Preston to Long Island to meet my parents. My father, who had become incredibly strict after my trauma, took one look at Preston and nodded in approval. Preston's maturity, calmness, and deep respect for his elders completely won my family over. A small wedding was planned. No drama, no flashy displays of wealth, just pure sincerity and overflowing love. Preston and I got married on a gorgeous sun-drenched autumn day. This time there was no massive hotel ballroom with hundreds of guests. No performative speeches about money. We chose a beautiful botanical garden in upstate New York decorated with purple airs, the symbol of enduring love. The guest list was capped at 50 people, our immediate families and our closest friends. Wearing an elegant off-the-shoulder gown with my hair pinned up simply, I walked down the grassy aisle on my father's arm. Dad had tears in his eyes as he handed me to Preston. Preston held my hand tight, flashing the brightest smile in the world. In that intimate space, we exchanged simple wedding bands and vowed to hold each other's hands through every storm life threw at us. My new in-laws sat in the front row, clapping and smiling with pure joy. The scene was unbelievably peaceful, entirely erasing the horrific memory of that unfinished wedding years ago. Just as the reception was winding down, Lily ran over, pulling my arm and whispering in my ear, "Maya, look out by the garden gates. Someone you know." I frowned, following Lily's gaze. Standing awkwardly outside the iron gates, partially hidden by the bushes, was Hunter. I almost didn't recognize him. He was emaciated, his face sunken, sporting a patchy beard, wearing a wrinkled, cheap dress shirt. I had heard that after being fired for his ethical scandal combined with his family's ruined reputation, Hunter had fallen into long-term unemployment and depression. Word on the street was that Eleanor, furious and humiliated, had fallen severely ill and been bedridden for months, completely draining whatever money they had left on medical bills. Hunter was holding a small box wrapped in red paper. His exhausted eyes looked at me. Seeing that I spotted him, he timidly stepped toward the gate, raising a hand as if to wave. I stopped in my tracks, patting Preston's arm. "Wait for me a second." I walked straight toward the gates, maintaining a strict distance from Hunter. My eyes were cold, betraying zero emotion. "You look beautiful in that dress. Congratulations. Here's a small gift I wanted to give you and your husband. Hunter stammered, holding the box out through the bars. I didn't reach out to take it. I just replied softly, my voice as calm as a still lake. Thank you, but I don't accept gifts from strangers. The past is closed. Please never appear in my life again. Go home and take responsibility for your own family. With that, I turned on my heel and walked away. I didn't look back once. The red box in Hunter's hand dropped to his side. He stood frozen in place. His head bowed in crushing regret. But that regret came far too late. Everyone has to pay the price for the choices they make. A week after the wedding, Preston received an incredible offer to become the regional director for his firm's new branch out in Seattle. It was an amazing opportunity to advance his career. Preston asked for my opinion, worried that I wouldn't want to leave New York and my parents. I threw my arms around his neck, resting my chin on his solid shoulder, and smiled brightly. As long as I'm with you, I'm home. Seattle is beautiful and I want to experience a new environment too. A few days later, I submitted a transfer request to my company's West Coast office. We packed our bags and said our goodbyes to our families. My parents were sad to see me go, but incredibly at peace knowing their daughter was with a strong husband who loved her unconditionally. On a bright morning at JFK Airport, Preston and I walked hand in hand through security. The intercom announced the boarding call for our flight to Seattle. I looked out the massive glass windows at the high, clear blue sky. The plane was about to take off, carrying two hearts beating to the same rhythm, leaving the storms of the past far behind. A new life free, equal, and brimming with happiness was waiting for us with open arms. I am so thankful that on that day years ago, I had the courage to walk away so that today I could receive the most perfect arrangement fate had to offer. Closing out this highly emotional story, I'm sure all of us are left with lingering thoughts and a bit of heartache. Looking deeply at the roots of this conflict, it's easy to see the shadows of family tragedies that are unfortunately not rare in our society. As for the mother, the psychology of a woman who struggled her whole life to raise a son can sometimes birth a massive sense of possessiveness. That mother feared losing her supreme position in her son's heart. She feared her power in the family being divided by another woman. That extreme interference, the desire to control finances and the meddling in her child's marriage actually stems from a very deep insecurity. However, that insecurity mutated into calculated actions, ruthlessly pushing someone else to the brink. Conversely, the resentment and fury of the bride are completely understandable. Any woman stepping into a marriage expects respect and transparency. Having her hard work and money used as a stepping stone for her husband to prove his loyalty to his mother, being stripped of her autonomy on her actual wedding day, that is an unforgivable injustice. She acted decisively because she realized the foundation of that family wasn't built on love, but on deceit. Perhaps the most thought-provoking role in this story is the husband's caught between his mother and his future wife. That man chose to dodge responsibility. Blindly submitting to manipulation out of the pressure to be the perfect son inadvertently turned him into a coward incapable of protecting his own nuclear family. Generational gaps and the biased mindsets of parents, if not resolved with empathy, can become invisible blades that sever the deepest bonds. From today's story, we have a chance to reflect on how we treat our loved ones under our own roofs. To maintain a happy family, love alone is not enough. A lasting marriage requires a solid foundation of respect, transparency, and equality. Love does not equal tolerating the unreasonable, and honoring your parents should never be used as a shield to trample on the hard work and dignity of the partner standing by your side. Between generations, differences in perspectives are inevitable. However, instead of imposing authority or using harsh words to hurt each other to force compliance, we desperately need to take a step back and listen sincerely. Parents who love their children must learn when to let go, allowing their kids to take responsibility and build their own homes. Interfering too deeply and wanting to control everything is often the exact reason children end up with shattered lives. As for the younger generation, husbands and wives need to learn how to communicate directly, clearly outlining boundaries and expectations right from the beginning. Empathy in marriage is always the master key to untangling any conflict. When facing a storm, sit down together, put yourself in your partner's shoes, and feel their struggles and hidden anxieties. A warm home isn't a place devoid of disagreements. It's a place where after everything, people still choose grace, using kindness to heal rather than attacking each other. Family is always a peaceful harbor to return to, but that harbor is only truly warm when compassion and forgiveness are present. We hope that through this story, each of you will find a new perspective on balancing relationships, knowing how to properly appreciate and love those walking alongside you. Life already has too many worries. Please give each other genuine words and open hearts.